Caitlin Clark just triggered a deal that ended careers she never even touched. But before she logs a single pro minute, she's already holding a signature Nike pipeline and prime NBC real estate. Executives are in quiet rooms right now, crossing names off renewal sheets, and those names belong to the same veterans who spent 2 seasons trying to box her out of the spotlight. They believed the hierarchy was permanent. They were wrong.
But even before she makes her pro debut, she has a major Nike deal on the line.
The response isn't coming from Caitlin. It's coming from the money. And the money has decided the old guard is replaceable. While veterans argue over splits and respect, Caitlin is courtside at NBA games, shaking hands with icons, becoming the face they can't outshine. The shift is happening so fast most fans missed it. But the metrics don't miss, and neither do the empty seats where decade-long careers used to sit. This isn't about basketball anymore. It's about leverage. And the players who tried to gatekeep are now locked outside their own business. Stay with us. We're breaking down how karma turned into a business strategy when Caitlin Clark stepped into the WNBA draft in April 2024, something the league had been begging for finally arrived.
And games of the upcoming WNBA season, and tickets for the Wings are going fast.
But instead of celebrating it, the system hesitated. It didn't know how to react to a player who could single-handedly change its economics. Her debut with the Indiana Fever pulled millions of viewers. That number alone should have rewritten the conversation. But it didn't. Not immediately, because the Fever weren't supposed to matter. They had been stuck at the bottom for years. Attendance hovered in the low thousands inside arenas built for tens of thousands. Tickets were practically giveaways. Entire sections sat empty. Then Clark arrived and everything snapped into focus overnight. Season tickets exploded. Secondary markets surged. Road arenas started upgrading venues just to host Fever games because demand suddenly outgrew capacity, and the veterans saw every single bit of it. They saw the crowds. They saw the jersey lines. They saw their own engagement climbing simply because Clark was in the same league. But instead of embracing the moment, many resisted it. Interviews became guarded. Praise became passive-aggressive. Mentions became selective. The message wasn't always direct, but it was clear enough. This rookie needed to earn her place. Then the game started. Hard screens. Extra contact. Off-ball bumps that cameras didn't always catch. Physical play that crossed from competitive into calculated. Clips started circulating online. Debates followed. Fans who had never watched a WNBA game suddenly had opinions about officiating, treatment, and culture inside the league. And every clip fed the same narrative. The league's biggest opportunity was being policed by the very players who stood to benefit from it. The data told a colder story. Before Clark, regular broadcasts often struggled to break mid-six-figure viewership. Some weekday games fell dramatically lower. Sponsorship interest was limited. Broadcast windows were inconsistent. The league was stable, but it wasn't scaling. Then Clark's game started trending. Ratings spiked. Social clips went viral. Merch sold out. The same arenas that used to echo were now loud enough to shake. Networks noticed. Brands noticed. Owners definitely noticed, and they started taking notes on who leaned into the moment and who pushed against it. That distinction mattered more than anyone realized, because behind the scenes, executives weren't evaluating loyalty. They were evaluating leverage. Who moved numbers? Who created conversation? Who could justify a higher rights fee, a bigger sponsorship package, a larger marketing spend? Clark checked every box. She wasn't just a good player. She was a growth engine, which meant the conversation was no longer about basketball. It was about business. In early 2025, NBC finalized a massive rights agreement with both the NBA and the WNBA. Billions of dollars moved. Expectations followed. Traditionally, that kind of deal comes with a familiar playbook: celebrate history, elevate champions, spotlight the veterans who built the brand. That isn't what happened. NBC's early promotional material centered on Clark. Studio segments. Cross-league appearances. Pre-game panels. She was placed alongside established NBA analysts and former stars as if she had already been part of the professional ecosystem for a decade. Meanwhile, longtime WNBA champions and decorated veterans were largely absent from the front-facing campaign. It wasn't personal. It was mathematical. Internal testing showed that casual sports audiences responded instantly to Clark. Recognition rates were higher. Engagement rates were higher. Click-through, watch time, social sharing, all higher. When other stars were featured, the response flattened. Not zero. But not explosive. Not enough to justify leading a billion-dollar rollout. So NBC made a decision. They built their strategy around the one player who consistently converted attention into measurable growth. Marketing followed. Posters. Digital campaigns. Cross-platform ads. Clark was the centerpiece. The rest of the league became supporting cast. Not because they lacked talent. Because they lacked pull with the broader audience NBC was trying to capture. Streaming data confirmed it. Games featuring Clark drove significantly higher starts and longer watch times on Peacock. When she sat, minute-by-minute graphs dipped. When she returned, they spiked again. It was one of the clearest signals a network can get. Viewers were not just watching the league. They were watching her. Merchandise mirrored the trend. Ticketing mirrored it. Social growth mirrored it. Every metric pointed in the same direction. That created a structural problem. For years, the league's model emphasized collective growth. Shared marketing. Shared identity. A rising tide lifting all boats. NBC's data suggested a different reality. One boat was pulling the tide, and when that happens, the strategy changes. Executives don't argue with momentum. They build around it, which is exactly what they did. While media rights and marketing strategies were shifting, another battle was unfolding inside the league. The Players Association entered negotiations with owners over salaries, travel standards, and revenue share. The requests weren't unusual by professional sports standards. Higher pay. Better conditions. A larger piece of the revenue they helped generate, but timing changed everything. For decades, the league operated at a loss, supported in part by its relationship with the NBA. That history shaped ownership thinking. Spending was cautious. Growth was gradual. Then Clark's arrival introduced a sudden spike in revenue potential. Sponsorship interest climbed. Broadcast value increased. Team finances, especially for markets like Indiana, started moving towards sustainability. Owners looked at the new numbers and asked a blunt question: where is this growth coming from? The answer was obvious, which meant negotiations were no longer abstract. They were tied to specific drivers of revenue. A veteran salary line could be compared directly to the dollars that player helped generate. In many cases, the gap was wide. In Clark's case, it was enormous. That imbalance weakened the union's leverage. Historically, a strike threat works because the product disappears without the players. But if the audience is primarily tuning in for one figure, the calculation changes. Owners can explore alternatives. Replacement rosters. Development talent. Incoming draft classes. As long as the central draw remains, the product still sells. That realization started to shift internal dynamics. Reports surfaced of players reconsidering hardline positions. Quiet conversations about compromise. Recognition that pushing too far could accelerate a transition toward younger, more marketable talent. A transition that ownership, media partners, and sponsors might actually welcome. At the same time, corporate sponsors made their own decisions. Brands align with attention. Attention drives return. Clark's platforms delivered scale that most others could not match. Campaigns featuring her produced stronger engagement. Conversion followed. Meanwhile, some veteran partnerships stagnated or declined. Budgets moved accordingly. It wasn't about disrespect, it was about return on investment. By the time the season's future became a public question, the underlying reality was already clear. The league's center of gravity had shifted. Media, money, and marketing were aligned around a single, undeniable fact: One player had changed the economics of the entire operation, and once that happens, there is no going back. This story is bigger than one league or one player. What's unfolding inside the WNBA is rewriting the blueprint for how modern sports operate. For the first time, an entire league has pivoted its future around a single athlete's pull. The NBA has stars everywhere, but it never leans on just one. The WNBA does now. The schedule bends around her games. The marketing leads with her face. The television deals are structured around her value. That kind of dependence creates risk. What happens if she gets hurt? What happens if she steps away? What happens if she decides her brand is bigger than the league that hosts it? The league has placed its biggest bet on Caitlin Clark. If she disappears, the whole structure shakes. But ownership didn't have another option. The alternative was shrinking ratings, empty arenas, and stalled growth. They chose survival over comfort. The veterans are learning a brutal truth about professional sports. Legacy doesn't guarantee relevance. Longevity doesn't guarantee leverage. The only currency that matters is what you generate today. And today, they don't generate what Caitlin does. This shift will change how the next generation approaches the game. Young players entering the league are watching closely. They understand now that talent alone isn't enough. You have to perform and you have to move business. The model has changed. The veterans tried to resist it. They couldn't stop it. Not because the system is unfair, but because the numbers made the decision for everyone. When one athlete produces more value than entire rosters combined, the direction becomes inevitable. They had a chance to grow with her and didn't. Now they're watching from the outside while she sits courtside, building something bigger than the league itself. The owners aren't reversing course. The networks aren't backing down. The market has already spoken. The future belongs to the player they couldn't contain. And she's only just beginning.